Hi, it's Miu and welcome to my channel Miuchrome and to this video, which is another doll custom. In this video I am making a custom doll that I have been planning to make for a while now. This is a really cheap doll that I got a while ago to test some techniques, and while trying some stuff she organically transformed into this kind of genie character. I wanted to complete this concept with a Monster High doll, precisely with this Abbey, since she already has the right color and her glitter is still beautifully intact, without any yellowing. I feel like a glittery appearance fits the ghostly character of a genie pretty well. To prep the head, I chopped the hair off, put her head in boiling water to soften it and pull it off. Then I pulled the hair out through the neck hole with needle nose pliers. The reason I didn't finish the cheap doll is that when it came to the outfit I had all the fabrics perfectly planned. It then seemed like a waste to use them on her and too much commitment to find a nice pattern when it's so easy to find them for Monster High dolls. I got rid of the factory paint with some acetone, and after washing her with dish soap she is ready for the new hair. I wanted to try out these super cheap synthetic extensions that in my opinion look pretty nice and not too shiny. To prevent her blue head color from shining through the hair, I painted her scalp with black acrylics. I then simply cut off the hair off the wefts and poked little strands into the holes one by one with my rerouting tool. I chose jet black hair because I did want her to be just one of those stereotypical genies, blue with black hair and a high ponytail. I just liked the look of those characters so much, I didn't feel the need to put a twist on it. This Abbey's hair holes were already arranged to form a ponytail, so that was also why I picked that specific head. Honestly, I was surprised that the length of those hairs was just enough after bending them in half. I was prepared for it to be too long, but you really underestimate how much of the length gets lost. I still haven't found the perfect glue for reroutings, but I have 3 water and heat-proof glues that I wanted to try out, 2 textile glues and 1 for multiple purposes. Of course, I wanted to test them before using it on my tediously rerouted head. To do that, I prepared a piece of plastic and glued a small amount of hair to it for each glue. After those dried, I dunked them into boiling hot water. After some examination, I decided that the blue textile glue would be best. They all worked well, but this one had the best consistency, fluid enough to cover all the hair, but not too fluid to seep through the holes. The name of the brand is Prim if you happen to look for a good glue and have it in your area. I will warn you though that it took multiple days to dry. After it dried, I pulled some hair to the front that will later frame her face. I gave them a boil wash too, to make it easier for me later. I'm always scared to pour hot water over the face up, so I try to do what I can before painting the face, which is going to be next. First up, I wanted to try and sand down Abbey's underbite a bit. I didn't do too much because I didn't want the lip to come out flat, but I think it did somewhat of a difference. So here's my first try, which was going in the right direction at first, but there was something I didn't like about it after I had progressed a little further. I still can't really put my finger on it, but it just didn't look interesting enough for me, although I still wanted to keep all the elements the same. So I wiped the face again with acetone and redid it. I first did some general blushing of the face in a darker and very rich blue. I deepened the shadows of the corners of her mouth to achieve a smug smile. As we know, the things you wish for from a genie can often have an unexpected outcome, so I wanted her expression to be a little mischievous but also mysterious, so that her real intentions seem always obscured. I then sketched in her eye shape. I wanted her to wear thick black eyeliner and eyeshadow, so I took that into account from the beginning. I slowly built up the color to find the right shape. I decided to only draw on the lower lashes. I felt it made her eye shape come out better, and honestly you will also see me doing that a lot because I just like it that way. Her eyebrows were supposed to be raised a little and support her mischievous look, but without looking straight up evil. I then started giving her face a little more depth with some pink blushing in the area of the cheeks and mouth. After that I started working on building up the black makeup and eyebrows. I wanted her mouth to remain natural looking, so I chose a darker blue. It's also the lip color of her predecessor. I also started sketching in some highlights before moving to the irises. Like my test doll, the color I wanted them to be was bright red. It's not just really fitting for the character, subliminally signaling some danger, but also a combo I really like. I think red accents on blue is very pretty. I quickly noticed that I couldn't really build up the white with my watercolor pencil, so I moved to white gouache to fill in the eyeballs. Slowly I kept alternating between building up the white but also the black eyeliner. The lips color also needed more intensity, so I used the darker blue again, but also mixed in some pink to make it look more natural. I decided that the makeup didn't look black and smoky enough yet. Obviously the inspiration for it was Arabic makeup, since genies originate in Arabic mythology, so I wanted her to have the cool eyeliner look. Using pastels and watercolor pencils wouldn't cut it, so I drew in the lower eyeliner with gouache and acrylics. I feel like this also really elevated her facial expression. Her prototype had no pupils, and after considering and trying out a bit, I decided that she also looks better and more mysterious without them. I also wanted the irises to be much brighter, so I went over the whole iris with a very light and opaque pink. Can you see how much that changed her expression? I definitely prefer it like this. Next step is filling in my brightest red. I don't know if you had noticed, but I also progressively added more to the brows until they were nice and thick. With a dark blue from the beginning, I added some detailing shadows around the eyes and more blushing in general. I tried out some eye shines, but every time came to the conclusion that they just look better without. Lastly, I coated her with this extremely pretty iridescent overcoat, since her face glitter came off with the acetone and wouldn't match her body like this. So, the clothes will be loosely Middle Eastern inspired, but without any historical or traditional accuracy. The one thing I was sure about from the beginning was that I wanted her to have those nice balloon pants. Since I'm not by all means a seamstress, I needed to figure out a pattern somehow. These pants you're seeing right now seemed like a good enough base, so I started by dismantling them to figure out the shapes. It was a pretty easy pattern with the same piece mirrored. I first glued the piece of the fabric to a piece of paper to make sure it keeps its shape. I then transferred it to a sturdier piece of paper. I made notes on how I was supposed to sew it back together and made a prototype to make sure I didn't make any errors. By the way, these notes are not in any way how these things are described in official patterns, but so that I would understand them. Everything looked fine, so the experimenting phase on how to alter the pattern began. I made the leg longer and wider, especially at the bottom of the legs. Before using my good fabric, I tested the altered pattern again with another prototype, and it definitely came out too tight. I made the pattern a lot wider and especially pushed the bottom part further out. This time the prototype looked pretty good. The top and the bottom will be gathered around with a rubber band, so I tested the shape with a thread. This time I was really happy how it came out and transferred a clean version of the pattern on a thicker piece of paper. I chose this nice piece of turquoisey blue satin for the pants. I needed two of the same piece mirrored, so I folded the fabric in half and drew the shape on the back side of the fabric. Satin is extremely slippery, so I fixated the two layers of fabric with needles before cutting the shape out, so that they will come out even. Here are the two pieces next to each other. Satin frays like crazy, so I put a thin layer of PVA glue on all the edges. The seam allowance on the top and bottom of the legs needed to be measured so that it would fit this flat rubber band that I will install inside. I sewed the seam allowances down with my sewing machine. I put a piece of thicker paper underneath so that the satin won't slip into my sewing machine. I feel like this really helps with those really tiny sewing projects. I used really small stitches so I could satisfyingly rip the paper apart after. Next, I needed to sew each of the leg pieces together finished sides in. Be careful not to sew all the way through, since we need to pull the rubber through later. I then just needed to sew the leg pieces together, which I didn't dare to do with the sewing machine because I was scared I would make a wrong move and destroy all the work. I was already very pleased with the outcome. Now just pull the rubber band through. It was a bit complicated and took some time to get it through there, but I was afraid if I sewed it in with the rubber band inside, I would probably just accidentally sew the rubber band on the fabric. After doing this for the top and both legs, I put the pants on the doll and just pulled on both rubber ends until the fabric would gather around nicely. I first put knots to secure it, but those ended up showing through, so I cut them off and sewed the ends together. This way I could also just hide the open ends very well and no further sewing was needed. I love these pants and they came out exactly as I imagined. Since it worked so well, I will see that I put a download file for the pattern in the description for you in case you would like to make them yourself. Now the top. I had a crop top with short sleeves in mind. To find the right pattern, I tried the same technique as before and dismantled an old Monster High shirt that seemed to have the right shape. Again, sticking the pieces to paper to make them keep their shape and find out how they are put together. If the old dolls I purchased come with clothes, I always keep them for this purpose. The top was asymmetrical, which I didn't want, so I just duplicated the side I thought better suited. I chose this turquoise fabric with beautiful golden ornaments for the top. Because of the tiny size, the cutouts should be well thought out so that the ornaments will look good. I also paid attention to keeping some symmetry, for example on the sleeves. This fabric was even worse when it comes to fraying, so again everything needed immediately to be fixated with PVA glue. Folding down the seam allowances was also extremely difficult since the fabric would bend even less and the gold parts weren't even made of normal fabric but rather very sturdy tinsel-like fibers. Here you can see all the pattern pieces. First I needed to put the sleeves on the front pattern like this. Again, I didn't use a sewing machine because these pieces were just too tiny and I was afraid if my sewing machine would eat a piece once, everything would be ruined and I'd have to start all over again. Sewing the other sleeve, I paid special attention to the angle so that it would be symmetrical. Next, I needed to put the back pieces on the other end of the sleeves. Again, paying attention that the angles remain symmetrical. Now just ironing everything flat after turning it inside out and we can try it on. Now I wasn't completely unhappy with it, but the fit wasn't exactly good. I think because I used a pattern from a very elastic and thin fabric, it just didn't translate too well into this thicker and very stiff one. I tried the whole making a pattern out of tape thing and it looked promising at first, but the outcome was even more ill-fitting. So I decided I could at least sew some darts on the original top that made very little difference, but also sew some transparent straps on it so that it wouldn't slip down anymore. And then I also decorated the top with these little chains. I felt like the outfit still needed a little something and I really wanted to use this light turquoise, more delicate fabric since I found it to be a perfect match. I sew a long sleeve that is going to be a sash that I can wrap around her. To avoid any fumbling with knots, I also installed a little push button. We're almost done with the outfit, only missing the shoes. I used green stuff for the base since it remains elastic after curing. I think because of this it is a pretty well suited material for shoes since epoxy or milliput would cure too hard to be able to take the shoes on and off again. I'm protecting the feet with some cling wrap. Only problem was that mine was extremely hard to manage and would come out very lumpy. It could be because of its age. Using some alcohol on it definitely helped, but the real solution to this was definitely sanding. I did the majority with my Proxon. Doing it by hand would be nearly impossible, but I did do some cleanup with sandpaper. Now I only needed to paint the shoes gold, but then I thought, wait, wouldn't it elevate the look of the shoes so much if I covered it in this golden satin? So that's what I did. It definitely required a lot of patience and stick glue, but it was really worth it in the end. Unfortunately, I had to leave the inside ugly because putting fabric in there would definitely make the shoe not fit anymore. This material that looks like leather to make some soles and hide where I glued everything down, and they're done. As I said, the hair is going to be in a ponytail, but I separate the front half first. I then give the hair a little cut, just some slight layers so that it will fall more nicely. I wanted her to have some gold accessories incorporated in her hairstyle, preferably the same jump rings that I used on her top. So I looked up some techniques and found this really cool one. I can't really explain, but I'll link a video. It was extremely difficult to do on such a small scale though, and it took ages, so I decided to do 2 more rows with even smaller jump rings. When I was finally done, I put her head back on her body and only needed to put all the hair into a ponytail. This hair was kind of stiff and created a bit of an alien head shape that I couldn't get rid of. I ball washed that part of the hair again while in the ponytail, and that did the trick. The front hair I wanted to fall loosely to the back, so I first tied it onto the hair at the back of the head with a black thread. I then used another rubber band to tie it up with the rest of the ponytail. I left 2 streaks right in front of the ears that I cut a bit into shape. Now just some final touch-ups. I painted her nails in a nice and slightly darker shade of blue. I made her removable headband out of the same golden satin as the shoes to go around the rubber hair ties. For the earrings, I glued together some nice bright red rhinestones that go nicely with her eyes. A similarly colored stone I used to make her belly button piercing. To make it more realistic, I cut a little bead and placed it on top, since there are always 2 parts on a belly button piercing. I also put some jump rings as bracelets and rings. As a last step, I gave her eyelashes that I attached with UV resin, and then I also glossed her eyes and lips with it. And she's done! I really hope you like this custom. It is definitely a lot different from my last one. I feel like there aren't really a lot of Genie customs out there. There are definitely a few, but still I feel like they are super overlooked as a concept, although it is really cool, don't you think? Maybe it is because of the ghostly tail, but I think it works just as well with their normal legs. I also know there are, I think, 2 Genie characters in Monster High, but to be honest, when I looked at them, I didn't even realize they were supposed to be genies. It would definitely be interesting to explore Genie character designs more though, and push it further than the stereotypical blue skin and black hair. Let me know if you would like to see another one in the future, and I hope I'll see you again in the next video. Bye!